Chris Dobransky in Westport, Connecticut, in Kayfabe Commentaries, You Shoot with Tony Atlas. We heard of some of the racism he dealt with in the business, coming up in the business in the in the southern-based NWA. What challenges, if any, did you face as a black man trying to make it in a dominantly white man's profession?
Yeah, I had my problems there. I really had most of my problems, not a whole lot, but with Ole, you know, he was a bad man. Even if he knew your name, he would call you a nigger. He just didn't care. I remember one time I was refereeing one of his matches, and he was in the corner. I patted him on the back. I was asking him to bag out, and he turned around and told me, "Nigga, don't touch me. Don't put your hands on me."
In the ring?
In the ring. He told me that. One time I had trouble with superstar Bill Dundee. Elberton, Georgia. I never forget. It was a high school gym, and something happened during the match, but I was refereeing, and he yelled right out in front of everybody, "Can't you see what they're doing, nigger?" Just like that, man. And I mean, it was just unbelievable. I just kept right on going. Ric Flair walked up to me one time and asked me, he said, "Nigger, you like working here?" And I didn't know what the deal was. And he said there was this was Knoxville, Tennessee. He said there were some girls at the back door, and they were trying to get in, and they told him that I said that they could come in. I don't know who these girls are. I'm going to tell somebody to get in. I don't know who these girls are. But I mean, I think it was just a way to pick at me. And I remember Kevin Sullivan and Eddie Gilbert telling me, you know, that when they went to him to present the manager deal, you know, me being a manager, that he hated it. He didn't want
Rick did.
Yeah, he hated it. He didn't want no part of it. So Jim Hurd told me one time, right to my face, I had to go in his office. The day me and Undertaker was in there. Undertaker was having trouble with Ole. Ole said he would never draw a dime, he wouldn't do this, he wouldn't be that. So Taker left, and that's when he came to Vince. But that day, me and him was in that office. Jim Hurd told me to my face, he said, "Teddy," he said, "I can just be honest with you, Ric Flair doesn't like you." So why, I don't know. But
did it change over time?
Maybe. You know, I mean, just for somebody to come up to me and say stuff to me like he did and to stop me from feeding my family, you know what I mean? I ain't bothering nobody. I'm just doing my job, trying to do what I'm supposed to do. Gary Hart, since I'm thinking about this, Gary Hart was another man came and told me. He went to Flair, and he told Flair to leave me alone. You know, why you fucking with him? He's just doing his job. So, you know, I don't think it ever changed. I mean, me and him have talked since then, you know, we speak. I mean, if he speak to me, I speak to him. If he don't say that to me, I don't say that to him.
I always thought that Gary Hart had the soul of a black man.
Well, he was a nice guy. He wasn't bad. He made me a blade one time. What I mean about that is after I had that incident, you know, where he went to Flair, he made me something, had a little razor blade in it. I may still have that, but he gave that to me. And he told me, he said, "These motherfuckers keep fucking with you, you cut their goddamn throat." He told me, he made it for me and gave it to me.
Daniel from Finland, are the rumors about Melina fucking around true? And were you among the lucky guys, if there were any?
No, I wasn't one of the lucky guys, but I did hear a little bit about her fucking around, but never seen any of that, just going by what I hear, so that's all I can tell you.
Go. The Bella twins.
Put them in there.
Right in there, huh? Well, how about that?
They were like that video.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's how they were living, huh?
Well, they like doing it to people.
Did you get a bit of a show?
No, I just hear in the dressing room some guys, they did that too. They wait for you to fall asleep, they go and pee and crap on you. I was in Arizona, and they flop around in a tub, in the swimming pool, not a stitch of clothes on.
Good for them.
I went to my room.
Well, that wasn't in Arizona. That was in Corpus Christi, Texas.
There you go.
That's where that happened at. But, you know, I don't know about the Bellas hoeing around and all that.
Going to a room and crapping on a guy.
Yeah, I don't know where you got that from. I never heard of that. But I do know about them being in the hot tub in the pool naked.
Nothing wrong with that.
That was Corpus Christi, Texas.
You know, Tony likes to have women walk on his face. You know that, right?
Oh, I know him real well. Yeah, I'll tell you a story about him. We was we was going to gym one morning in Stamford, Connecticut. We was up there in Bridgeport, and so right next to the gym there was this rehabilitation place. So we get out of the car. So we're walking to the gym, and so I'm watching him. He's walking slow, and he's looking at this lady. Here's a lady that's on a cane. She's walking on a cane. So he's looking at this lady, and I'm like, "What is wrong with you?" I said, What are you doing?" "Oh, I said, Tony, she's 80 years old. What are you doing?" "Well, I ain't trying to fuck her. I just wanted her to walk on me." I'm like, "Tony, she can't even stand on her own fucking 2 feet. How's she gonna walk on you? She's on a cane." But this is a true story, man. He loved that shit. Then we went in the gym, and next thing I know, we in the gym about 15 minutes, he's up there, he's talking to one girl, so I walk over to him, and he looks at her feet, and he tells her exactly her shoe size. Scared her to death. She ran off and left, and she wouldn't talk to him no more. So that Tony, like I said, I love him to death. But have you ever seen a video of him?
Yeah, when he was here, we showed it and had him kind of talk us through it because I was fascinated about what about that is erotic in any way. You know what he told us? Do you know the story?
No, I don't know what he told you.
He didn't walk till he was 3 years old. And so he crawled around the floor in his mom's house, and the women that would come would wear, they were working class women, so they wore flat bottom shoes. He got infatuated with flat bottom, because I thought it was heels. I said, "You like heels on your feet?" He said, "No, those are church ladies. Flat shoes."
Well, he's right.
Yeah. Tony's fascinating. I could sit here and talk to Tony all day.
I love him. I went in where did I go? And this is a true story, brother. I was driving to Augusta, Greenville, South Carolina for a show. I went in the McDonald's. I stopped in the McDonald's to get something to eat. I took my grandson with me, and we were riding. And the people recognized me. They saw who I was, and there was a girl that walked up to me out of the blue, and she asked me about Tony Atlas. I said, "Yeah." I said, "He's still around." I said, "He's working." "Do you still like to walk on? Do you still like women to walk on him?" I mean, out of the blue. I never seen this lady a day in my life.
It has it that an old friend of yours with bleached blonde hair was particularly upset by this and made it known to anyone that would listen in WCW.
I do remember that, as you say it, that it came, but again, that's just typical Dick, you know. And I'm not talking.
Did you say Rick or Dick?
No, I said Dick.
Oh, you said Dick.
Yeah, I meant to say Dick. It's so apropos and it fits so well.
You guys haven't hugged and kissed yet? All these years. All these years. You know, brothers in the same fraternity, really.
We are. Yeah, but cut from very different cloths. You know, I've never expected anybody to kiss my ass in this business, fans or wrestler or promoter. But Rick seems to have this penchant that he has the right to get up and make a demand for a draw at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that somehow it should miraculously have the ATM machine appear in front of him, and how dare it not? You know, it's Ric Flair, the classic meltdown.
But your interactions in person,
yeah,
he's usually very respectful of you to your face. He fears you a bit.
Well, he's you know, Rick, you know, he can turn the charm on when he has to. You know, you know, and I've mentioned this many times, but Ric Flair is one of the reasons I got into the business. He was the type of guy that, as a kid sitting at home watching, and I mean a small kid, Dick, he was the guy that I used to watch on television or read about in the magazine and say, "Damn, that guy is what a wrestler is supposed to be." And then meeting him later in person and realizing that he was, you know, I mean, we all have skeletons in our closet, and we all fall far short of the bar that we set in our own mind. But this guy fell so quantumly short of being anything even close to what I had in my head for him.
How long did it take you to realize that after meeting him?
I would say probably within the first 3-4 months. You know, and only because you know, the way I was trained to come into the business, I was told, keep your mouth shut, your eyes and ears open, pay attention. So the guy that I was paying attention to was him, because that was the guy that I had hoped to be like one day. And when I see him pulling his penis out in a bar full of kids, you know, running up and down a hallway like some fraternity boy at 46 years old, the world heavyweight champion, that represents a company, I felt, even as a kid then that didn't know what the hell I was doing one way or the other, I knew I didn't want anybody looking at him doing those type of idiotic, absurd, obscene things, looking at me and thinking, well, he's a wrestler and that guy over there's a wrestler, so do you do that too? No, I don't pull my penis out in a bar full of kids. I don't run up and down a hall at 46, 7 years old naked and stomping on doors and going up to women I don't even know and dragging them into the middle of a dance floor and, you know, making a fool of myself. these were the things that I saw him doing, and you know, it was embarrassing to me.
Was he disrespectful to other wrestlers?
Rick was disrespectful in covert ways that he wouldn't even realize, just because he had had so many people, you know, kissing his rear end for so long and blowing smoke up his backside that he didn't even realize when he was being disrespectful to people, I think, a lot of the times. But other times he clearly did. And I think he relished in that, you know, and I think that's part of the reason, my own commentary, I think that's part of the reason why, you know, we're hearing these stories about him today. To me, in my mind, at this stage of his career, Ric Flair should be, you know, the elder statesman of our business, you know, not being talked about in the stories that we're hearing about. Whether they're twisted or not, there's some semblance of truth, whatever the semblance of truth is, and the nugget of, and the grain of truth at the center. You know, for anybody 60 years old to be acting like that is, as a representative of the company, the only question I have is to, you know, to Dixie Carter and anybody else in a position of authority at TNA is, why would they allow it to go on, and why would they not leave him there and fire him, not leave him there and then bring him back a couple of days later and then he's back on TV.
Has he finally, I mean, has he come unglued completely? Has he unraveled?
The stories that I'm hearing from different people, I've not seen it because I've not been around. You know, I work, you know, my own schedule and run it that way. But I'm hearing stories from several people, you know, about him making demands to Dixie about him not being happy with his suite at the DoubleTree, about you know, the thing with the payoff, and you know, it's just, to me, it's sad. You know, again, my personal differences aside, that this guy, who was the embodiment of professional wrestling for so many years, has become, you know, this sort of sidekick, you know, butt of the joke. You know, and it's sad. You know, I would hope for him. You know, we've seen so many deaths in this business and so many, you know, train wrecks that, you know, I don't wish that for anybody or on anybody. You know, I would like to see that, you know, whatever it is that Rick feels that he needs to, you know, I don't know if he's covering something up or trying to conceal something or compensate for something else. You know, to me, I would much rather see the Ric Flair yardstick champion that was the measuring stick to everybody, as and icon at that point, as opposed to this guy that everybody's scratching their head and going, did you hear this Ric Flair story? Did you hear that Ric Flair story?
Rich, arrogant, successful, and ready to steal your girlfriend. What's not to hate? Well, your number 3 most effective heel of all time was the guy you hated because you couldn't be him. Down that aisle comes number 3. They want me to do the woo. Not doing it.
Yeah, when he had a full head of hair and he didn't look like he was 80, 20 years older than what he was. Yeah, he was the shit, man.
Oh, well, come on. He's the nature boy. You can't even argue with that.
Probably people would argue the greatest worker of all time.
Oh, really? Is he really a heel?
He's either or. I mean, he could be either or. He could have been in either one, you know. But do I think he's a better heel than a good guy? Yeah, because he's, you know, blonde hair, dresses nice, rides in limousine, has all the hot chicks. That right there would piss me off, just because he hogs all the chicks and the hot ones and leaves the fat ones for us. So, you know, so why, you know, yeah, he's in there.
Confidence is very attractive. A man that's not like, oh my God. You know, a man with a little bit of balls is good, nice.
I think he was more over than had heat. He had heat, but it was a different kind of heat. I mean, he was one of the biggest heels, but people were still, you know, screaming woo at him. So obviously, it wasn't the same kind of heel heat as some other heels have had. But he's one of those controversial baby faces too, I guess.
He was a ladies' man. Maybe that's why everybody hated him. Because he's like, I could get all the women in the world. Still to this day, you can get all the women. So maybe that makes him a heel.
People were jealous of his lifestyle. He was running around in limousines. He was flying in jets, and he had the hottest women in the world with him. Did we all want to be like that at one point? So if a neighbor of yours has everything that you want and you can't achieve, don't you just start disliking that neighbor just a little bit?
Yeah, because he had a long run. He's always been a heel, more or less. He's not really been a baby face too much. And there again, he didn't have that fear factor. People didn't fear him. They hated him. They hated his arrogance. And he did the heel thing very well. He did the Buddy Rogers, you know, custom made from head to toe. What is it? Limousine riding, jet plane flying, kiss stealing, 60-minute man. Woo!
Everybody came to watch Ric Flair. Ric Flair would go into small territories. He was the champion. It'd go from 300-400 people at the buildings to thousands of people at the buildings wherever he went. And you being the top guy in that territory, you wanted to work with Ric because that would boost you up a level. And Ric was just phenomenal to be in the ring working with.
Flair's a guy that everybody wants to see get beat up. They love him. They love to hate him. Especially as soon as he does his, you know, whoa! As soon as he does that, everybody wants to see his butt get kicked across the ring.
You know, he's a guy that you love to hate. And the only thing that saddens me is that Ric has stayed in the business as long as he has. I was in Orlando the day after his quote-unquote retirement match with Shawn Michaels, and the Horsemen were brought in as a surprise, and we were the first guests that Triple H brought out there, and it was overwhelming, the response that we got. But you know, Orlando was an old NWA you know, foundation spot, so maybe it wasn't surprising in that sense, but just the response that Ric got and the emotion that flowed in a perfect world, that should have been the night maybe that Ric hung him up. And whether it's for financial reasons, that I would hate to think after all that he accomplished, after the great record that he has, that his personal situation has dictated that he has to continue in the ring. It would sadden me to think if that's the case, and I can't think of any other explanation. And when I still talk to him from time to time, and it's one of those things that it's a conversation that it's painful to talk about, so you don't ever bring it up.
You know what? Ric Flair is a freaking great guy if he wants to be. But if, you know what? If he wants to fuck you, he will not hesitate to stick it in and turn it.
Ric lived it to the fullest. I mean, Ric Flair would come in and he'd buy the whole bar. Food, drinks, whatever. He completely lived his gimmick and still does live his gimmick. He is really Ric Flair.
Did you know Ric? No, I'm just kidding.
Why did I use Flair and Gonzalez in the same sense? Oh, Flair likes to stick it and twist it, and Gonzalez literally did it. Flair does it all the time. He's done it to many guys, and he'll do it in such a sly way. And you know what? He's paying for it all now because he's a miserable motherfucker. I look in his eyes, I know he's a miserable motherfucker. And if he wasn't, he wouldn't frickin' be getting in the ring anymore because he's frickin' killing his legacy. Because when I look at him, I'm frickin' please, Ric, please.
He had the dance. He had the dance. That's a very heelish dance, I guess. Oh, okay.
I think Ric Flair probably made more baby faces and made more heels. I think Ric is higher than that.
Ric Flair is the best ring technician in the business still today. He's the best ring psychology guy there is. He knows exactly what needs to be done on his behalf. That was the beauty of working with the Four Horsemen. He and Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson, when we got to wrestle with them, they all knew what we needed to do to be the Road Warriors. They knew better than we did on what was going to work. So that's why, and it doesn't happen anymore in the business, but that's why we just shut our mouth, went in there, said, "What do you want to do, Mr. Flair?" And we let them call the whole match. And a lot of people don't realize that because Flair was the ring general. And that's the way I think he should be remembered. I would even move Flair up to close to #1.
He would do, you know, they said the 60-minute man, do 50, 60-minute matches with people. And and they would go, they would go Broadway, and it was just the fact that he could work with anybody at that time and make anybody a great babyface. And I heard like he would go into territories and work with whoever the top guy was there and make that guy a star.
Rick gave 100%, probably gave 150%. Every night he went out, his objective was to do the best, to perform the best, and have the best match. Things that he does with his life outside the ring, unfortunately now have taken away from that mystique. But Ric Flair, the wrestler, was pretty phenomenal. He definitely has to be in the top 5.
Sometimes it's hard to put into words why somebody is successful, and that's what makes the wrestling business so unique, because you could take somebody on paper and say, well, this is a perfect example, but the unknown is always when they get out there in front of the public, because they're the ultimate judge. And if there's some connection that's made there between the wrestler and the fan, the ultimate judge is the fan. And like Rick's track record of success for as long as he's had it, I think that speaks for itself.
He was beatable, just like Randy Savage's Intercontinental title. You know what I mean? Randy Savage as a heel Intercontinental champion, Ric Flair as World Heavyweight champion. They were beatable heels. They made their opponents, whoever they were, look like they could win. And nobody does that either. You watch these guys work, and it's just like, even Randy Savage, getting away from Ric Flair, but he would work Saturday morning superstars and make Johnny Canine or Barry O or whatever look like, whoever he was working, look like he could win. Ric Flair did the same thing. He could take guys that shouldn't even be in the ring with him and make them look like they could beat him. And that's what he did, and that's what a lot of guys don't do today, because they're afraid of their spots or making themselves look weak.
Very few people could talk like him either. He always knew when you were sitting down, every one of you watching this, when you were sitting down watching a Ric Flair interview, didn't it feel like he was talking just to you?
He's a lot like, it's weird. I always describe Ric Flair as just like Bret Hart. You've seen one match, you've seen them all. You know what's coming next. You know when the chops are coming. You know when he's going to chop to every corner. You know when he's going to do his up and over and then take the bump on the apron. It's the same match, but it works. Why just fix something that's not broke? Same thing with Bret. If you look at his matches, you kind of know, what's coming.
When you think of wrestling nowadays, who do you think of? Hogan? Flair?
I think it still work today. It still would. Good heels that can captivate and make people hate them because of their actions and what they say or how they dress or how they walk can still do it.
Old school heat is something that a lot of people will never learn today, because the business is a different animal. And that way it's bad because it hurts, but at the same time it dies with people like Ric Flair and guys who are effective heels, because they know the art of being an effective heel, and it will never get passed down, because nobody ever will get it or take the time to even understand how to get it.
Yeah, Ric Flair, better than almost anybody, knew how to turn the emotions of a crowd. He could be a babyface in a match where he was a heel, and they'd all love him for 10 minutes. And then he'd make one slight change in whatever he was doing, and they hated him.
I don't think he made number 3 on the heel list, only because he could play the heel, but people still love Ric Flair. He's one of the greats.
What about Randy Savage? What were your memories of Randy?
Oh my gosh, that voice.
All right.
That voice and his hair. And he loved Miss Elizabeth. Oh my gosh, he loved her so much. So I remember how protective, even after they got divorced, and he was still very protective of her.
A lot of people we've done interviews with say he was pretty much really protective, to the point where he would lock her in a room and, he was really possessive. Did you ever witness any of that?
No, I think that happened when they were married. She told me that happened when
Right.
they were married. Because I knew her when they were divorced, and remember she married the lawyer?
Right.
And then I remember I flew down to Miami for a wedding.
She was with Lex too at one point.
Yeah, after that.
Yeah,
after that, yeah.
Right. So she would actually come out and talk to you about her, I guess, past problems with
Yeah,
Randy.
she actually would travel in the car with Steve McMichael, with me and Steve.
Wow.
Because, then it was cheaper. It was like she'd ride with us, and his car's included on the contract, so and it was, you know, she was my friend, so
Right.
it was good. Yeah, it was fun.
What was it as far as like stories about Randy? Was she like complaining about the way he'd treat her and how possessive he was, or was she just like?
You know how she's very timid. She would just say a few things about, you know, as in he was jealous, and she would be, you know, in the dressing room, but she'd be very timid when she would talk about it.
Right.
She still had, I mean, she could tell she was still in love with Randy.
Right. Did you realize she had any problems? Because obviously we know what happened to her down the line with, you know, pills and stuff like that. But did you? No idea.
I don't know if I was ignorant to being around that and didn't know it, being that I was, you know, from the NFL world to that world.
Right.
I never had a clue. And it was always, you know, every Monday night after the game, I'm talking
Right.
like football. Every Monday night after the show, you know, we'd go into the bar and have some drinks, and it was just normal. She'd have a couple of glasses of wine. And
All right. Who smartened you up as far as the etiquette and said, you know, maybe took you on the side and said, this is what you need to do to get over with the other people in the locker room?
probably Miss Elizabeth.
She did? Okay.
Yeah, I think her, yeah.
Would you consider her your mentor in the wrestling world as far as female talent goes? Or?
I think Medusa, too. Medusa traveled with us a lot, too. Boy, she's tough, too.
Oh, yeah.
Medusa's tough.
I know her very well.
Remember we went on the WCW bike ride?
Yes.
I remember I bitched about that. I was like, oh, Steve, I don't want to go. That's going to be boring. I had the best, that was the most fun. For all of 3 days, going
Right.
to Sturgis.
Hog Wild.
Yeah.
Right.
And they taped, oh, it's so fun. I still remember Medusa with her leather on and her boobs hanging out, bending over this bike, and just guys were about to have a wreck passing her. And, and Steve was on his Harley, and I can't believe we didn't have a wreck because he'd go about 100, and I had like a little bitty German helmet on.
Right.
Like that was going to protect me. And then I remember he had a gun, and we were out in the, I don't know, somewhere in Colorado where we were, because I think we left from there and went down to Denver on the bikes.
Right.
And then he was just shooting out in the field. Driving the bike like 80 miles an hour, shooting his gun down out in the field. I don't know if we shot a cow or what. I don't know.
Sounds like fun. What about Ric Flair? What are your memories of your very first angle with the Nature Boy?
Boy, you had to be on your toes with him.
Right.
Because I never knew what he was going to do, if he was going to throw me down and kiss me or what he was going to do. It's like, you're having to really pay attention.
Right.
But I remember the other days, especially, I remember one time we were in Boston and we were all having a party in the suite, and man, he loves to just take his clothes off.
That's what I heard. I've seen it. I've actually witnessed it with the sock and everything.
Oh, he's not, and it's so funny because you don't even pay attention to him after. It's like, that's just what he does.
Right. Did he ever hit on you, Rick, at all outside the ring?
No.
Professional?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember I heard that Rick said in an interview that Mongo would go to the bar with the boys and drop thousands of dollars like it was nothing. Is that true? And if so, did it ever concern you at all?
Well, I think he started doing that when we were going through our divorce. I can tell you what, he wouldn't be doing that when we were married.
Right.
Oh, no.
It used to be.
Speaking about Flair, Scott, on the interview that we did with you last month, you called out Ric Flair on the last interview and pretty much said he was untrustworthy for taking the WCW title with him to WWE. Do you feel the same way, Kev, as Scott kind of feels?
I think that's bad business. I don't know. Anytime I've ever left an organization or anything, I've always, when I told Vince I was leaving and going to WCW, I said I'd do some favors on the way out because those were my friends that I was leaving the locker room. And he said, I want you to put over Shawn, I want you to put over Undertaker. He said, I want you to put over Warrior. And Warrior just came in. I said, no, man, I ain't putting him over because he hadn't been in the trenches with us. But the other two guys, I said, I'll put him over dead in the middle with a finish. I don't have a problem with that. And I did. So I've never had a problem doing that. But, I don't know what Rick's situation was. Did it mean more? It was a little bit different, Kev. It was before you got there, and I was with Heenan. It was a good spot for me. I was with Heenan, Perfect, and Flair. And they were I was gonna screw Mach, and he was gonna drop the strap to Flair. And I had some heat with Flair from WCW when he was burying me on TV when he was a booker. Right. And so I'm sitting there, we're in a little meeting with Vince, and he's running by what's gonna happen. He goes, anybody have any questions? I was about to go, yeah, you sure you want to give this guy your belt? Because he came to your company with the other company's belt. Right. I was going to say it because I didn't like Flair, and he's not my boss anymore, and I'm a prick.
No!
Well, rumor has it. So Kurt gave me the office, like, just tapped me on the foot, like, don't say it, don't say it. So I let it go.
Do you guys think it's time for Flair to step aside because he's still on TV and stuff? Or
I think he still gets a good reaction. If you look at the talent that they have, I mean, it was years ago, but I remember being in Philly one time, looking around the locker room going, God, like, I think the card was messed up, so they were making substitutions. I was looking around going, God, who got to work with? Looking around the locker room going, wow, that's Ric Flair. You know, say what you want about him. Oh, he's past his prime. Oh, he doesn't look good, whatever. He's still Ric Flair.
Yeah, I still think he's one of their top 4 or 5 guys.
I insisted on taking the figure 4 right in the middle. You know.
you actually just talked a little bit about Warrior. What do you guys remember about when he came back to WCW to work? What was he like?
I always got along with him. I mean, personally, as a person, I mean, he's different, man. He's a different cat. But I don't think he has any malice in him. He's not a malicious guy or anything. But he's different. He's just a real.
I found him to be a little eccentric.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's part of the thing that just kind of works for him.
Go ahead.
I admired the fact that, you know, rumor has it, and I think the rumors are true, that he got his money.
Yeah, he held up.
You know, so a lot of people say, well, he's not a good worker. You know, I know one thing, when he went down the aisle, the fans cheered. And you can't learn that. You can't be taught that. They either like you or they don't. They liked him. He was real limited in what he did, but just book him with the right person.
He knew his limitations.
Yeah, he got paid. I like that, because you need guys who demand money.
Right.
Some guys, you know, this guy we know from Canada had the strap, and he was happy making, you know, $400,000 a year. It's like, just if he could win every night. It's like, no, brother. You have to raise you got to go in there and complain. You're the man.
It's business.
Speaking of Brett, do you think that Vince? Do you guys feel that Vince was responsible for a lot of the heat between Shawn and Brett?
Well, I'm sure. I mean, it's just good for business for them. They always stir the shit any chance they get. It just makes for better television. Two guys, especially back then, the show now is so heavily scripted. I mean, there's nothing organic that happens on the show anymore. But back then, I mean, you know, guys shot on interviews, and you know, it was. I started that. I don't know, man. Two pricks.
Yeah. Well, see, when they went live, that was the whole new thing. All his TV was all, you know, 50 matches in one day.
Yeah. And it was all canned, and you know, you did your interviews in the back. I mean, everything was, you know.
Yeah, you did 10, 15, do it over.
Okay, now Albany, market specifics. So it was a different business. Once it became live, then all of a sudden, you know, Scott and I always had the, you know, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. So we just did it and come back and go, sorry.
Has Brian Knobbs ever urinated on you, anyone you know of, or any of your property?
No, he never urinated on me. And Brian and I are friends now, but like, he's the only guy I ever fucking let have it.
In the ring?
No, outside the ring. I wouldn't really do that so much. I have in the ring, but.
What happened?
He just kept fucking with me. You know, when he gets drunk or fucked up, he's very belligerent. And when he's not, he's like the sweetheart, the biggest sweetheart in the world. But like, it's like a fucking gremlin. You can't feed him after dark, you know? And he kept fucking saying shit, you know, and like pulling my fucking card in front of the boys when I first got to WCW. And so finally, we were in New Orleans at the House of Blues, and Hogan was there playing bass up on stage, and me and Scott Hall walked in, and Scott was fucked up. I wasn't fucked up. Like all I did was smoke pot, so it's hard to get fucked up smoking pot. But I saw Brian off in the corner, and I'm just like, fuck, because I promised if he fucked with me again, I was gonna pop him one. And so I'm tiptoeing like fucking Elmer Fudd through there, you know. And all of a sudden, I think I made it through. Oh, fucking, he didn't see me. Next thing you know, he grabs me by the back of the hair, shakes my head, my neck's already fucked up, and he smacks me across the back of the head, and I just turn around and went, boom. I punched him. And then Sags didn't know what was up, and he looked over and saw me punch Brian. He punched me in the nose, and then fucking, here comes Norton and fucking Big Show, and it was no big deal. I went and wiped my nose off and came back and did a shot with him, you know, like just.
Did he stay off your case after that?
Yeah.
Okay. You ever party with Flair?
Not really. Not really, but he did back when I wasn't ever touching any alcohol. You know, he did kind of call us out to drinking shots one night, but he drinks those fucking pussy-ass kamikazes.
Yeah.
And we're like, fuck you. If I'm gonna like break sobriety and drink with you, like we're gonna, you know, Scott and I were like, you drink those fucking pussy-ass kamikazes. Let's drink some fucking Jack. So you can already tell he started backpedaling a little bit. I was like, what's the matter? Fucking all night long. You know, and so we ordered the Jack, and fucking he dumped it over his shoulder.
Didn't you have
That's
a rule?
Fucking shoot. That's a fucking true story.
But didn't you then?
Dare somebody to fucking deny that happened?
Didn't you then enact a gargle rule with the shots?
Yes, that's a Kurt Hennig rule.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So that you couldn't toss it. They had to hear you
That's
gargle
right.
it. Yep.
Kurt Hennig's fucking gargled the Jack rule.
Eric Smith ever party with Shane McMahon?
A little bit.
Can he hold up?
Sure. Yeah, of course he can. And he's fucking cool motherfucker, man. He's got a big old fucking set of nuts on him, man. Him and I went skydiving together. And his parents didn't know. And Alundra Blaze went, Medusa went with us. I was so fucking scared. I'm holding on to the fucking door, waiting to fucking go out. I'm so scared of heights. And Shane jumped out before me. He just went, ooh, and just fucking did a back somersault out the fucking door. I'm like, you sick fuck.
Wow. Jeff Parker, describe a night on the town with the Outsiders versus a night on the town with the New Age Outlaws.
A night on the town with the Outsiders is, what do you mean, like Wolfpack?
The crew there.
Yeah. All right, start out, maybe go get some sushi. I'm talking about the past.
Of course, this is all ancient history.
You know, depending on the fucking pharmaceuticals available at the time, ingest some pills, smoke some pot. Somebody might drink or whatever, and you know, eventually end up at a bar, strip club, fucking, or something, country bar. It could be anything. And, you know, I mean, towards the end of the night, it would be, you know, Kev and I, like, preventing an all-out fucking World War III because of something Scott did.
And then New Age Outlaws.
Basically the same thing, except for it would be Billy and I fucking usually preventing all-out World War III because of something Dog did.
You were talking about the pills. Did you get it? Did you get into that myth where the carbs kicked them in
That's
quicker,
not a fucking myth,
and
dude.
you'd have pizza with them or something
Cookie, pizza, any kind of complex carb.
And that's true.
Fuck yes, man. It's like rocket fuel.
Huh. All right.
About 3-4 Soma, but that only works with Somas.
Oh, that's only for Somas.
Only Soma.
Oh, okay. Now, superstar Billy Graham and David Schultz are the most vocal people in this piece. Give me the reaction within the company when this airs. Is this just another blow in what seemed to be an onslaught at the time, or did it have some kind of significance?
As I recall, a lot of us thought that if Hogan had just answered the question, it would have just gone, everything would have been just gone away. But because it was the lie that got him. It's like Nixon. It's like, as soon as he lied about it, everybody groaned and went, oh, here's this guy. Like, come on. Like, denying that he was on steroids. Anyway, the way Hogan handled it was so poorly done. Like, he was so pathetic how he handled it, rather than just sort of owning up to it, or giving some kind of an answer that would have sufficed. but I think he brought a tidal wave of headache and nightmare for everybody. Just and business really dropped off almost automatic as soon as all that through that whole period.
The company does institute a drug policy early in the year, I guess as a result of this and some of the other pieces that were coming out. Was it legitimately enforced?
I think so. I mean, it was for me. I think for most of the guys. I mean, there may be exceptions to the rule. I know lots of guys tried their hardest to cheat when they needed to. Some of them got away with it. I mean, but it was not easy to do, and it was a game of chance. You know, I know personally that for me it wasn't a big issue.
Right.
You know, I wasn't too worried about passing or failing a drug test. I mean.
This was, for many years, talked about as kind of a dream match. And why didn't the Hogan-Flair thing work?
Well, I think because probably the egos, in the sense that two guys Hogan had a set routine way he worked. He could only work a certain way. He had to work the Hulk Hogan kind of way. And Ric Flair was just the same mentality. He was set in his own ways of how he had basically, both of them were two guys that had the same match every night so when you mix them together and say, okay, now try to mix and combine, they were at a loss as to how to do that.
Does a booker, a promoter, somebody, is it their job to pull the guys aside and say, listen, this isn't going to work unless one of you starts to dance to somebody's music?
I suspect, I'm guessing, but I'm sure Vince tried.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I'm thinking that I'm sure there was a lot of reasoning there. I kind of went through my own thing with Rick in '92 when I worked with him, where it was for whatever reason we went from having really good matches to, like, as soon as I won the title, we were just having lousy matches where we bungled up the finish all the time, or something went wrong, or he missed up the spots, or there was always some kind of where it just wasn't quite right all the time. And Rick was, I remember he told me that he was having some problems at home or something like that, and he was distracted. And maybe that's the case, but I mean, I remember actually going to Vince and going, I think he's sabotaging the matches, trying to sabotage we keep screwing up the finish and stuff like that. It's like we're doing the worst endings to our matches out of nowhere. I'm pinning him with like he'll call a small package out of a figure four, and I'll small package him, and he doesn't kick out. And it's like the worst ending of the match. It's so flat, and it's like hardly even a clap. And I'm looking at him like, you're killing me off every night.
And killing himself too, because you.
Well, he was leaving, going to WCW at that time. But I remember telling Vince, like, we had 90 days left with him, and I was working with him, and I said, I'm not sure if he's on the level with me, because he's ruining the match every night on purpose, or it seems to me. And then Vince and me talked about it more, and I think we had meetings with Rick in the building where Pat Patterson flew in, and we talked. And you know what? We did the same thing every night. He still screwed up lots of stuff, and we never quite did it my way. And eventually he left, and I think Vince talked to me a few weeks after, and he said, you know what? I think it's just the way he works. He didn't do it. It was not so much bad intentions, maybe, as just that's just how he works. He can only do Ric Flair stuff. He can do the Ric Flair match. He's got to be in control of that Ric Flair match, and that's, he calls it in there kind of thing, which is that was how they worked in the 70s. They call it in there, and everybody sort of imitated Harley Race and Dory Funk, and I think Flair, that's how he came from an era I came on the dividing line of another era that was not quite like that anymore. We could still call it in the ring, but we were more advanced than that.
Miguel Finley, I know that you and Bret Hart have both denied having an affair, but do you think Julie Hart ever believed it to be true? Was she ever cold or suspicious around you?
I always got along with Julie when they were married, and she'd come to shows. We'd always sit and have our talks, and she was always really cool with me. I always worried if she would ever think something happened, so I actually found her on Facebook a couple years ago, probably about 2 years ago. And she's engaged to some guy down in Texas. He's like a high-ranking somebody in the Air Force or something like that. And I actually, we were writing back and forth because it was the first time we had contact in years. And I said, Julie, I said, listen, I want to talk to you about something. And I wrote to her and said, I really hope you didn't believe any of the bullshit that went on, all the rumors. I said, because it actually bothered me back in the day because we were friends. I didn't want her to think anything was going on because nothing was going on. And she told me straight out that she never believed any of it. She knows how she knows the business and knows how things are, spread. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? She's like, yes, I'm sure. Don't worry. I never believed any of it. But no, she's totally been very, very cool. She's a really nice lady.
Nudge Noritas from Chatsworth, Australia. Dear Tammy, you're a credit to the wrestling industry, a trendsetter for the divas today.
Thank you, Nudge.
Quite possibly the greatest of all time. But I gotta ask you, what were you thinking causing a scene a few years back at a convention and yelling publicly at Bret Hart, I'm the best pussy you ever had?
What?
Please explain in great detail if possible.
Where do these people get this stuff? If I've never been with Bret Hart, how could I possibly yell that, people?
Ed Farnsworth, ever party with Ric Flair?
Not with him, but near him, yes. Ric Flair is completely the nature boy, on the road, at all times, 24/7. I remember the one instance, I don't remember where we were with WCW, and we all hit the lobby bar after the show, and there's one table still empty, and it has a reserved thing on it. Like the rest of the tables in the bar area was just open. Probably about an hour after we're all in there and everybody's got a couple shots in them, everybody's feeling good. Here comes Flair with 3 women on his arms. They sit down at the table. Waiters come over with a bottle of wine in front of each girl, an entire bottle for each girl, and Flair's tapping on the table going, whoo, that's right, I'm the nature boy, whoo, because he's proud he's got 3 girls and a bottle of wine for each of them. It was hysterical. Everybody was busting up laughing. It was great. But so he is, I never partied with him, but I watched him. He's crazy, out of his mind.
How was it working with Vince Russo before and after he became in charge of creative in the late 90s?
We had our battles when he was in charge of creative. I never really had any contact with him before that. But when he was in charge of creative, see, Vince was very cool with me about my photo shoots and about what went in the magazines on the website. He would always let me pick my shots. Well, when they came out with the Raw magazine with, I remember it was dual covers, I had one cover and Sable had the other cover. I went in there and he shows me the picture he's going to use on the cover. I was like, the hell you are. I mean, I always tried to keep that all-American girl image, girl next door kind of thing going on. And the picture he chose of me, I was on my hands and knees in the, in the ocean, and the look on my face was like this. It was basically saying, here, put your cock there, And I was just like, no, you're not going to print this on the cover. He's like, yes, we are. I've already made the decision. I'm like, oh, really?
You broke into WWE headquarters with your pass key and you took the fucking picture, didn't you?
I stormed down the hallway to Vince's office, blew open the door, said, Vince, this is fucked up. He's like, well, what's the matter, Tamara? Because he always called me Tamara. What is the matter, Tamara? So I said, well, Vince, and this is the problem. He's like, well, I'll put a stop to that right now, Tamara. You have no worries. So we went down to creative, and Vince said she will pick the picture she wants on the cover, and that's my final decision. So Russo was totally shot down. Because Vince let me have creative control once again. So we just butted heads like crazy after that.
Very good. Mike Campbell, 411. What are your thoughts on Jim Cornette, specifically the fact that he likes to refer to you, albeit in a complimentary fashion, as an out-front cunt, as opposed to Sable, who's an undercover cunt?
Exactly.
Was Sable an undercover cunt? And I think you've answered that already.
Yes, because she likes to come across as like, I'm the good one with class and, poise. And no, she's an undercover cunt. She's got all evil things going in her mind. Gotcha. Yeah, I'm the out front cunt, and I get respected for it because I will tell you how I feel. Like, even on like indies now, for example, guys will come up to me and say, can you watch my match? I'm like, yeah, sure. After the match, they'll say, what'd you think? And I will say, dude, it fucking sucked. Quit right now. You know what I mean? But at least I'm honest about it. I'm not going to say, oh, it was the greatest thing I've ever seen when they actually sucked. That's always been my problem. I've often been called the Jim Cornette of females, because I have diarrhea of the mouth just like him. Well, look who was my mentor. Where do you think I learned it from? So, but yeah, I will just come out. It goes from brain to mouth with no filter in between. So yeah, I've been quite the out front cunt at times, but damn proud of it.
We've arrived at the top spot on our list of most iconic champions, and to many fans, the man at number 1 is the very embodiment of a pro wrestling world champion and the true definition of an icon.
The man who tops the list of wrestling's most iconic champions is none other than Nature Boy Ric Flair, and I'm still not doing the woo.
Number one is probably going to be either Ric Flair or John Cena. Are bullets flying at me right now?
I'm prejudiced towards Sting, but
The Nature Boy Ric Flair. That name always comes up for some reason. I don't understand why.
My stab at number one would be Ric Flair.
Ric Flair.
Well, he was champion 127 times, so it's kind of hard to picture him without the belt.
People see Rick as number one because he was a champion so many times. I call Rick champ. Okay, Rick's a champ, and I can't really argue with that. But I kind of look at it almost as a three-way tie. For your three most iconic champions is Steve, Rick, and Hogan.
Definitely can be a number one, just for the fact that he was responsible for going to different territories and making different wrestlers. I mean, Hogan was champion of the WWE area.
I put him in the same category as Hulk, you know, a guy that literally hit the road, paved the way for everybody that came after him, and really set the bar for this industry, for the business.
Watching Ric Flair at his prime in the wrestling ring was, to me, the absolute personification and epitome of what a professional wrestler is and should be.
There was nothing see-through about Ric Flair. There was nothing that left that void, because to be a professional wrestling fan, there needs to be some sort of just disconnection from reality. I'm going to sit down, and I know it is what it is, but I want to be entertained and I want to believe. And the minute someone goes out there and there's that hole there that reminds you, it's a glaring white light, and it reminds you that, all right, this is pro wrestling. It almost insults the fan that put their money down. I want to put my money, if I'm watching a movie and there's a stunt, I don't want to see the wire hanging from the back of the actor. I want to believe that Tom Cruise jumped out of that plane. Everything Ric Flair did, you believed. So I think that it's a good list, and I do believe that you could juxtapose a few, but Ric Flair should be number one.
all those are worthy of being in the top five. I mean, you could throw a Sting in there, but Flair is, I would rank, I guess like from where I come in, I would definitely rank Flair up there, probably number two.
He did it in many promotions. He did it in many countries. And to say Ric Flair is the number one world champion of all time, I can't disagree with that. And I believe number two and number three wouldn't disagree with that as well.
Ric Flair embodies everything that professional wrestling ever should have been. Ric Flair was Ric Flair, whether the camera was on or off. And that's important, because you see a lot of guys, sadly more today than in the past, where you can see through them. I don't believe that you're such a tough guy. I don't believe that. Ric Flair was Ric Flair from the minute he woke up with 3 women in his bed to the minute he went to sleep with however many women in his bed.
He was a maker of champions and a champion. Just the way he conducted himself when he lived it. He's always in the suits and on the road. Man, you don't know what a pain it was. I told you about bringing suits and nice clothes on the road. Rick lived it. I mean, he definitely, what you saw on TV, that was Rick. He called him it was all about image enhancement, and he lived it. So he definitely, the professionalism he showed in developing his character and developing other new characters, Rick's definitely, I do evangelism now, and I go to these gigantic churches, and if I mention Ric Flair's name because they want to hear a couple of wrestling stories, the whole church starts wooing.
As world champion, Ric Flair made so many stars. I mean, guys you wouldn't think, you know, I mean, he made Lex Luger, he made Sting, and you can list all the people, you know, he made. And you can list all the different styles he worked with. He could work with a Ricky Steamboat. He could work with a Blackjack Mulligan. He did an hour match with Bruiser Brody.
To me, he just, in my mind's eye at that time, was what a professional wrestling champion should look like. I wasn't so much the guy that was into the big, you know, over-bloated, muscled-up body or the luchador flip-flying style. Rick could get in there and make wrist-lock leg sweep takedowns and arm bars and hammerlocks look fascinating, and put them together in a way that, you know, not to sound like a cliche, but A led to B, led to C, led to D. It fit like a glove.
You're talking about it within our community of, you know, hardcore wrestling fans or, you know, staunch wrestling fans. I really pick Flair, but the average person walking the street might not even know who that is, necessarily, whereas they will know who Rocky or Hulk are.
I'd say, I had to say Hogan, my opinion. People think of wrestling, they think of the red and yellow and Hulk Hogan.
Probably 1 or 2 on my list. If he were in the number 2 spot, one of the names that I would see in front of him would be Harley Race. But Rick, I mean, he's the reason I got into the wrestling business. When you go back and you watch his matches when he was younger, there was something truly outstanding about him. It's just like a thoroughbred among mules, you know, not to degrade anybody else in the business, but Rick was just that good.
Brett, you know, should have been up there, because he carried us through a lot of shit, man. Him and Taker carried us through a lot of shit.
My personal one would have been Luthez. There was still believability in wrestling back then. And even in his era where people, you know, he started and was champion when he was 21, I believe, in the late 30s. And then he was champion until in the 60s. But even people didn't believe that wrestling was real, believed Luthez was real, like they did Bruno.
You know, the guy you're missing from your list is Harley Race, because I think Harley was such an iconic champion that made so many people throughout his career as the champion. He made that championship something special, which probably helps Rick for his role, how people see him as number 1.
So does this mean there's no more committee? It's Ole in the driver's
Well,
seat?
there was still a committee, but Ole took the Flair spot in that there has to be a guy, head booker, right? So Ole was named the head booker, but he still had to talk to Jim Barnett and Jim Hurd and Jody Hamilton and Jim Ross and whoever else at the time. I can't. So many people came in and out. Whoever else at that time, but they gave Ole, actually, when you think about it, as you'll see with the talent that comes in and the things that go on, he gave Ole much more freedom than he'd given Flair. And the talent roster and the numbers show it. As a matter of fact, by the end of April, remember that 4.0 on Saturday night that Flair got? Down to 2.6. Remember the 4.4 on Sunday? Down to 2.7. Nearly in half.
What's your reaction when you hear Ole is given control?
I didn't really mind at that point because I figured, Jesus, anybody knows more about wrestling than Hurd, and I didn't know what Ole was going to do, and I've made amends with Ole since then, but it was brutal. It was brutal to fucking watch because, and once again, people accuse me of being behind the times or stuck in the past or whatever. I want to do angles and logic that worked 10 years ago, but with guys that were, I said one time in OVW, I tried to do wrestling logic from the 80s with guys that were born in the 80s, when that was 20 years ago or whatever. They were 20-something years old. I wanted to use new talent, but have wrestling make sense like it did. Both George Scott and Ole wanted to use the same guys that drew them money 15 years beforehand. Instead of doing the same things with new talent, you've always got to get the new talent over. But you can recycle the angles, but you can't recycle the fucking talent.
How's he to deal with if you have a concern about something?
Easy. Say, Ole, I'm really worried about this. Well, fuck off.
Well, let me ask you my next question. Maybe this is where you're going. There are a lot of people who consider Ric Flair to be the greatest pro wrestling champion of all time. Is Ric Flair the greatest pro wrestler ever? Can an argument even be made for this? You can start.
Not for me. For my money, he doesn't even rank. I'll give him this. He's a hard worker. He always was. You cannot take it away from the guy. He's not the guy who came in there and ate around with laser or anything like that. Absolutely not. But the example I gave a while back, it was a Ric Flair, because in my opinion, when I've seen Ric 2-3 times, I've seen him 100 times, and I never liked that. I never liked that. I don't like people to know exactly what's coming up, and with him, I think anybody could tell.
Harley, what do you think? Can a case be made for Ric?
Well, sure, a case could be made for anybody. I've wrestled Ric thousands of times all over the world. I've never went in the ring that I can remember of and ever let someone lead me or tell me what to do in the ring, including him. It's just, he's a superb talent. I don't want to sit here and say that myself or Bruno or anybody's better than whoever. I think the question's been answered.
Okay. Okay, so let me pose this, and you can answer yourself. Who's the greatest pro wrestling champion of all time?
I have no idea.
In your heart of hearts, in your most secret moment.
I would say I rank up there pretty close, but I'm not going to sit here and say that Joe Blow's better than Tom Thumb.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I couldn't come. I don't think it would be fair to say, because you just said that somebody thought Flair was the best. That's their opinion and entitled. There have been a lot of great in the NWA. Of course, you put Harley on top with anybody, but then you had some other guys. The Funks were pretty good. You had Ruthez, who's pretty good. Since I've been around, that is, because prior to that, I don't know how many other great ones. But there have been some really great guys. I for myself would be very difficult to just say one guy and say he was head and shoulders above everybody else. I don't know. I can do that.
Same thing. But if we had to pick a great champion or a greatest champion, what would be the things that we'd have to look at? Would it be gate receipts? Would it be longevity as champion? Would it be number of times as champion? What do you think those determining factors should be when you talk about a great champion? We'll start with you, Bruno, since you finished the last question.
A great champion is one who I think that, as far as for the public, one that is found interesting enough to the public, they will continue to keep supporting him because they think that he's great or right up there. What makes also a great champion, in my opinion, is again one who dedicates himself to that role, and that is to always see to it that he's in good shape. You know what I mean? That he looks the part, that he looks like a champion. And I've also been pretty strong about his overall conduct. You want to be looked upon with respect. You want to be looked upon as a guy who say he's a professional wrestler in a classy way. I don't like it, and I never did. None of us are perfect. God knows none of us are perfect. But I think it's important on how you behave when you're in that position and to the public, as far as to what it means to be that champion, in wrestling or whether it be boxing or anything. And I think it's a true champion is a guy who meets all these qualifications.
Harley, is it behavior? Is it gate receipts? Is it money? Is it longevity? What is it?
I think it's everything that you just mentioned. Being able to go out in that ring with anybody and being able to go for any length of time and fill those butts in the arenas throughout the world. And there's a few of us that have been that fortunate, right? One guy sitting right beside me is one of them. And I had the opportunity to be in almost every country except Red China and Russia as the NWA champion, and I take it with a lot of pride. The people that were around back in that era are, to me, the greatest there's ever been in any sport, and I consider this a sport.
The watering hole at that time was Bennigan's, which
in Charlotte
was in the South Park area, where Flair, Tully, myself, Arn lived a little bit further out, but we all went that same route.
Would all of you guys go out? Arn, Ole?
Not Ole. Ole was Ole did his own thing, but the rest of us, we would all often have our own vehicles, and might be a bit of a race to see who could get to Bennigan's, or sometimes, depending on what the hour was in the day of the week, we would want to get there before they closed down, so that we could, once we got in the door, a little bit harder for them to shut it down and throw us out.
Now, Flair was the kamikaze king. Everyone knows this, right?
Yes.
The kamikaze.
Yeah.
What was your drink of choice?
I, back in those days, drank Bacardi rum with Coke.
Okay.
That was my favorite.
Here at Bennigan's, and if I look over to Tully, what's his drink of choice?
Tully was a beer drinker, I'm going to say. Miller Lite, maybe. And Arn was a beer drinker, too.
Lex, did he partake?
I don't remember.
All those calories. All those calories.
Yeah, being a partaker. He would hold a glass, and it seemed like he would hold it forever, and I have no idea what was in it.
Vodka looks like water. In the bar, in a Bennigan's, favorite watering hole, what are your interactions with fans in a bar? You being tested? They just coming up wanting a picture, wanting to pose?
Yeah, there was some of that, but a lot of them, as in most of those type of establishments, have somewhat of a regular clientele. So it wasn't like it was a big event to see us in there because we were there. It depends if we were there. There might be a week or so, 10 days, where we weren't there at all because of the schedule. But if we were close to town, they weren't surprised when we walked through the door, for the most part.
If there are baby faces in the same place, what is the etiquette here in 1987? Are they on their side of the bar? You're on your side of the bar?
Yes.
You're not talking?
No.
Okay. How forward were the ladies at these regular watering holes?
Oh.
In general, you don't have to speak specifics to you, but here I am with the Horsemen. What can I expect on a night with the Horsemen at a Bennigan's, where they all know us?
Flair's MO was, as soon as he got in the door, to grab the best-looking waitress and have her get a tray, not a kamikaze or a couple kamikazes. His MO was to get a tray full, and then he would look for his victims, and he would go around. And his greatest joy in life, I think, was finding young ladies and just getting them hammered. And he was pretty good at it.
Right.
And he wanted everybody to jump in with both feet. And like I say, I was a Bacardi rum drinker, and oftentimes Flair would be the first one in the door, and oftentimes I would hear him say it. He would say, Bacardi 151 for JJ, not loud enough that I could hear, but oftentimes I would hear it, or if I didn't hear it, my first move was, and I'd give me another glass of Coke, please, and I'm kind of doing this. And as long as we knew each other, that Flair would do that every night that he could, thinking that he got me.
Was he picking up the tab, like we so often hear about?
Yeah, quite often, or a lot of times we would, at the end of the night, go to settle the tab and be told there is no tab, or that somebody else had picked it up. And I remember one night we were in Hawaii, and a bunch of us went out to a restaurant, and I don't remember what the occasion was, but it was the Horsemen, and Flair ordered Dom Perignon, and one became two, became three, and pretty soon before we were done, I think we had I want to say like 6 bottles of Dom Perignon. All that they had chilled were on the table. And Tom Selleck walked in and wanted to order Dom Perignon and was told there weren't any. We had drank it all. And he came over to the table and said hello, and you know, we offered him a glass of champagne. But hey, things like that happened.
Which member is getting the most attention from the ladies?
Flair.
Is it Rick?
Yeah. I mean, I never thought of I'm not a chick magnet. That's, you know, whether it's my personality or the vibe. People that meet me oftentimes take a long time to get to know me, because I guess the vibes that I give off are one of being standoffish, you know, maybe a little bit arrogant, and so people have a hard time warming up to me. So when I go into a bar, it's kind of they go to Flair because it's just he's the nature boy, and he has that type of personality that the women of all ages just gravitate to him. But every now and then, how would you say it? I get lucky.
Good. What is each member of the Four Horsemen's type? No pun intended with member. As far as one, was there someone that said, "Oh, that's going to be Rick's because she's whatever, tall, blonde, and blue eyes"? Or did they have a profile there was kind of shot for?
I don't know that there was a real profile or a thought process that went into it. I mean, Flair just, you know, hit the floor running and with the tray of kamikazes, and nobody had any idea where it was going to go from there. Tully was a bit of a ladies' man. He was very charming and very different than the persona that you might see on TV. Arn was kind of a down-to-earth, good old boy, and I'm me. I'm kind of tend to be the quiet one. And when you look around, especially like when Luger, where was Luger? Luger would be over against the wall, just standing holding his drink, kind of, and even more so than me, people didn't gravitate to him for some reason.
Interesting. What time does this chicanery wrap up here at Bennigan's?
It just, you know, I mean, there would be a reasonable time where we wouldn't want to create enemies, and especially in Charlotte, because again, you're going to sleep in your own bed, and we have ample opportunity on the road where we're spending the night in a hotel, and when we called in a night, didn't really matter so much. I mean, I remember going to Chicago, and there was a place called Snuggeries, and these places have a tendency to change names over the years, but that's what it was called at the time, and that was our regular watering hole. And we had an old gentleman, African-American gentleman, that would be the driver of the limo every time that we came to Chicago. And you know, he would say, "Oh, you boys aren't going to keep me out late tonight." "Oh, no, I'm not doing it." I don't even remember his name, sadly. But he would take us down to Rush Street, and they always knew we were coming because Flair would let them know well in advance. And, you know, there were other bars. It was kind of the nightclub area. And I remember a pizza joint across the street. You know, I would get hungry and I'd reach a point where you think, well, I got to take a break, go across the street and get a slice of pizza. But we would go into all hours of the night, and that poor old guy would sitting behind the driver's seat of the limo, sound asleep, until we woke him up. We're ready to go.
You guys mentioned Ric Flair a couple seconds ago. What are your thoughts on Ric Flair?
He needs to stop getting married. It's good advice. I love Rick. I love Rick to death. I still get phone calls from him. He's a nutcase, and I love talking to him. And I'm glad I think he's decided to not work anymore. I think the Jerry Lawler incident scared him quite a bit.
That's what I heard.
I'm glad to hear that, because a couple of those times in TNA, you know, because the affection I have for Ric Flair and the respect I have for Ric Flair was felt very scared that something bad was going to happen in there, because he don't have a slow motion. You know, if he's in there, he's going to go hard. And I loved working him. I loved talking to him. You know, I don't know. Very few people I have more, you know, affection for and respect in this business than Ric Flair.
I do too. I love Rick, and he's been really good to me. Like, I hear from him too. You know, he'll
check in with you once in a while, and he's good to the people he likes. You know, if Rick doesn't like you, he'll let you know that too. But you know, if he likes you, he's always been good to the people I've seen that he kind of takes a liking to. The best way for me to describe Ric Flair is a 21-year-old soul trapped in a 66-year-old man's body.
He is trapped.
You know, and it's just like, I don't think that's ever going to change. He's the nature boy through and through. He's always going to be broke for the rest of his life because he's going to spend every money, every dime, every
He's
cent.
not taking it with him.
No, he's going to spend every cent he has portraying the nature boy role.
He's counting on the Mayans to take us out. That's what it was, what it is. He's counting on that December 21st show. I don't know when this is going to come out. But if we're still here, Rick's like, damn it. I was pretty sure that was it.
So yeah, man. I mean, Rick contributed a lot to the business, like you said, being one of the best at going out and taking someone with a very minimal amount of talent and getting something, you know, good to great out of them. You know, and just living the gimmick through and through. Like they people truly believe he's the nature boy because he is the nature boy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is the nature boy.
And he built stars. You know, and there's a lot of top guys that don't necessarily go out of their way to build other guys, and they say they do. And they say they want to, and they say that's what you're supposed to do, but they don't do it. Flair did it. Flair created whether it was Luger, whether it was Sting. I mean, anybody that he went in the ring with came out looking better afterward. They were a bigger star just by being in the ring with Flair. You know, I remember him having a match with damn Alabama State Junior Heavyweight Champion Mike Jackson, you know, on Saturday afternoon wrestling on TBS, and going out there and just, you know, whatever he went 5, 10, whatever minutes he went, was like, all of a sudden this guy's a world beater. You know, he could just make anybody look great. And at the same time, he still stayed Ric Flair, the world heavyweight champion. You know, he could go over and still elevate the guy at the same time. It wasn't like just because he went over, he pushed this guy down. He could go over and elevate the guy at the same time. You know, and you know, my vote, if I had to ever, you know, as I love Savage to death, and I think Eddie Guerrero is right up there as far as being the best over-round performer, but if I had to ever say one guy that I think was just the best of all time, it'd be Ric Flair.
What about your favorite Shawn Michaels? Thoughts on any good stories on Shawn? I know you might have to hold Shane back during this.
You know, it's one of those things that the few times I've worked with yeah, that'll stand out. I'll give that to you. The few times I've worked with Shawn, he was okay. Shawn was obviously a big inspiration to myself and Jeff. You know, we like the Rockers. We want to be brothers, a tag team. And you know, I think for the run he had, which wasn't as long as like a Ric Flair. You know, Ric Flair has to go down as like the greatest of all time just because of the length of that run and how he was great with so many opponents. I mean, Shawn was so dynamic with so many different opponents because Shawn not only was a good wrestler, he could make things look really believable, and he got to the point where he became a good talker, a very good actor. His looks and facial expressions were really good, but also Shawn could like be exciting. You know, he could dive, he could come off the top. You know, he was a great. You know, Shawn definitely is one of the greatest packages of a professional wrestler that's ever been put together. With that being said, you know, Shawn was like hell on wheels back in the days before his back surgery, especially when he was on top with DX, and he was, you know, he was a self-professed dick to many people. You know, he'd send people home and starve them. And you know, I think people do change, and he changed some, but still, there's that part of Shawn, you know, that still like wants to be the controlling force in his career, and he has to be you know, he has to get the final say in everything that goes on. You know, I think some things did change in his life, but you know, there's still little parts like he's going to tell you a story about, like, you know, he was doing the choke slam with Kane. It was part of the whole gimmick, and you know, Shawn didn't like it, and because Shawn didn't like it, he talked to the powers that be, and it didn't happen. You know, and I'm like, is that really necessary in the big scheme of things? I mean, is that really going to change business? I mean, it's not like, you know, the Hurricane was, you know, the whole concept behind the Hurricane was a fictional, entertaining superhero character. I think it's okay to do a fictional, entertaining superhero thing, you know, especially in a world where, you know, serious characters throw other guys to the ropes and they come back, you know. So, I don't know. You know, I think Shawn goes down as one of the greatest of all times. Shawn has never done anything personally to me. You know, I've seen situations that I've been around where he's certainly rubbed people the wrong way and maybe, you know, been a little, you know, two-faced or not tell the person directly to their face. Where, you know, Undertaker would tell you the issue directly to your face. You know, so would a Stone Cold. He'd tell you the issue directly to your face. You know, Shawn was a little bit of a different beast when it came to that, and I think that rep, you know, really stuck with him from those earlier days. And I think even though he became a better person overall, there was still a very vicious part of him as a professional wrestler in that business world.
Were you going to say anything, Shane?
No need to rehash old shit, you know. People know how I feel. I will say this: when my son popped out early, 10 weeks early, you know, Sean went out of his way to send me a best wish, you know, prayer tweet for my kids. So, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I don't really have anything more bad to say about him. Not bad. One of the best in-ring performers, you know. And I think I've said before when we did our shoot, anything I said about Shawn Michaels, I should have addressed him as Michael Hickenbottom, because I think it's Michael Hickenbottom that I don't like. Shawn Michaels is one of the best of all time.
It seems strange booking them having to win the belts before SummerSlam when they're not going to be in a tag
title match?
Yeah. Was this their idea? Like, what? From a booking standpoint, it doesn't make sense, but there had to be a reason.
Vince didn't want to stick, like, you know, now everything is a group or a clique or a faction. Back then, Vince didn't want any of that. He didn't want to take big-name guys and stick them all together and just be one act on the show. You know what I mean? Coming from his point of view, that's a lot of money just for one match on the lineup. It was just a different way of looking at it. You know, he was dead set against all that group stuff, you know?
Talk about Walter Payton, and was he a wrestling fan?
Yeah. He was just a really cool guy. His son was really cool. I don't know, you know, what can you say about one of the greatest football players ever? And in Chicago, you know, I remember him fucking just looking at Sean outside the ring and making a step towards him and the place would erupt. And it was like, keep going, you know, and he didn't have the instinct. But you know, I mean, he was getting a taste of it, and he was digging it.
How much are they given? When I say they, I mean a celebrity who's going to be a corner man or anything. As far as you can hit this guy or don't, or threaten him, like how much are they given beforehand, or is it all instinct that they got to figure out?
It's mostly when you're dealing with an outside guy, you want it.
These are the rules.
This is how it's going to go. Just make sure that there's no fucking confusion.
Right.
You know, and when you're dealing with outside guys, getting involved in matches, whether they're in the match or on the floor or whatever, like you want to keep things as basic, as simple as possible. I gave him a ride to the building that night. He was so fucking jacked up, dude. He was so gassed to the gills, and everybody else was pretty clean.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, with this new image and the steroid testing and stuff, how does anyone expect this is going to work out?
And I remember Brett I remember him not being too fond of Davey coming in.
Why?
I'm not sure. Maybe he thought Davey was going to, you know, encroach on his reign.
So it was wrestling related, not family related, the
more or less,
strain?
Yeah. Maybe, probably.
Why did it suck so much?
Well, number one, they were the main event, and Brett and Owen went out there and purposely took as much fucking time as they wanted, and too bad. That was the mentality. Brett told me that himself.
Beforehand, that we're going to stay out there and...
Or, you know, yeah, and afterwards, that we're going to take how much time we fucking need. You know, because as far as he was concerned, he was the co-main event. So basically, they took as much time as they wanted, left them with shit to work with, so how was that ever going to fucking work?
Was any of the flaw the conceptual booking of this kind of thing?
Yeah, some of it. But it's kind of hard to put it all in that, considering, you know, you had
the Brett Owen to the equation.
Right.
That happened a lot. Guys would go take time and fuck the other guy.
Some of your friends did
Sure.
that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brian Lee. Well, how come he's not kept and repackaged as anything? Is
I
he
think he was-
blamed for this in a way? Or
Maybe, and I think he was just fucked up a lot.
fucked up meaning injured, or fucked up on
Inebriated.
other stuff? Right.
Mind you, it's like, you're in the land of people being fucked up, so
When
he's
in
got to be
Rome,
fairly
yeah.
fucking, he's got to stick out like pretty good if you're, coming to the attention of the higher ups.
Oh, so you've got you got to up your game
Right.
so much that Now, is Taker? This is his friend. Does he make any attempt to get him to stay or to be kept?
I don't recollect it.
Yeah.